welcome to my channel. In this episode I want to talk to you about a topic that I found in a book. The book was about migration of masses of people in Europe. And I will cover a lot of topics, like how Turks migrated to Germany as Gastarbeiters, how Ukrainians were the most displaced after the Second World War, how Italians went to Germany before the Turks in the 1960s, how Portuguese went to France or Germany before or immediately after the Velvet Revolution and the overthrow of Salazar dictatorship, how the Jews were forced to migrate out of Romania and all Eastern Europe. This is a fascinating topic for me because myself, I'm a kind of labor migrant. I'm Romanian and I live in Hungary for more than 8 years now. And I might move out of Hungary. So this topic is very close to me. So first thing I want to discuss is the topic of Indonesians in the Netherlands. Indonesians and Surinamese in the Netherlands. We all know that the Netherlands was very big world power, maritime power in the 16th, 17th century, even after. So Indonesia and Suriname were Dutch colonies until 20th century. So we think it's absolutely normal that some people migrated from these parts of the world, very distant parts of the world, to the Netherlands. So Indonesians moved to the Netherlands mostly in the 20th century, during or after the Indonesian National Revolution. Many Moluccans and Indo people migrated to the Netherlands. So most of them were mostly army or former army members. So 360,000 people settled in the Netherlands in this period. And they account for around 1.6 million Dutch passport holders at the present, and as much as 10% of the population of the Netherlands. So Surinamese migrated to the Netherlands again, mostly during or immediately after the independence, let's say, period of Suriname in 1975, and the migration continued immediately after independence, during the military rule in the 1980s for largely economic reasons, till the 1990s. So the Surinamese community in the Netherlands measures 350,000 as of 2013. And in this book, I remember some concerns of the Dutch people in the 70s and 80s. The media did not really present these people very, very, very positively. So there were lots of integration problems with the Surinamese, but by now most of them have been successfully integrated in the Dutch society. The next topic I want to tell you is the topic of the Ukrainian migration. So the Ukrainians were one of the most displaced people after the Second World War, and they still have one of the highest percentage of immigrants in whole Europe. Upwards of 2.7 million Ukrainians as of 2019 work in the EU, which means roughly 1 in 7 Ukrainians. Ukrainians more closely in seasonal work, so picking fruits, vegetables, that kind of migrant labor is also typical of Romanians and other Eastern Europe people. And 20%, this is a general statistics, not related not solely to Ukrainians but to any kind of migrants. So around 20% of the ones that leave are gone forever, so they settle in their new home countries or communities forever. So almost 1 million Ukrainians working in the agriculture sector. Ukrainians send 7 billion euro in remittances yearly back home, which is around 10% of the Ukrainian GDP. This kind of remittances also apply to Romanian and Bulgarian diasporas or other Eastern European countries. Now, second topic, Portuguese. Portuguese migrated to France and Germany mainly in the 60s and the 70s due to escape the Salazar dictatorship, which forced the men and women to enroll in the army. So pretty terrible regime there, forced labor in the army. This made them go out of the country, find better labor conditions. Most of the Portuguese in France began working in constructions. Today 1.7 million Portuguese are in France, which include the Portuguese born in Portugal and Portuguese born in France. Portuguese are very nationalistic. I remember from the book there were some guys in Hamburg. They always hated the Germans because they are nationalistic, but this was because they are even more nationalistic. So they always said that they will go back to Portugal because they have still close connections with their family members living there, and they have big pride of being part of the Portuguese nation. We all know the reasons for this. Also the Portuguese, like the Dutch, had a vast empire around 15th, 16th century. We all know Vasco da Gama, and yeah, it's in some way it's pretty normal that they are nationalistic, but yeah, so these Portuguese migrated in France were sometimes referred as people from the barracks because they came from the army. So now Turkish migrants in Germany, very big amount of people. So currently there are 2.5 million Turks in Germany, most of them born there. They got there around the 60s. There was a labor agreement between the governments of Turkey and Germany, as Germany needed a big amount of workers, so they could execute their plan for infrastructure development. After the Second World War disaster, the Americans financed the Marshall Plan in the 60s, and by 1975 1 million Turks were already in Germany. The number peaked in the late 90s, 3.6 million in the whole European Union, which makes it even more interesting. So 7.3 million foreigners living now in Germany, and 2.5 out of this, so 1/3 of the minorities in Germany are Turks. I remember from the book the Germans hoped that the Turks will go back, but they soon realized they have a huge problem. They won't go back. So they soon realized they need to they need to get used to the fact. So of course, Turks like the high standard of living in Germany and their nice houses in residential areas. But there were some concerns about the Turkish women. So some jobs didn't allow Turkish women, constructions mostly for men. So there were other jobs more tailored for them, like cleaning. So a lot of Turkish women working cleaning in Germany. Most of the Turks in Germany lacked any education, didn't have even 10 years of formal education. 54% of Turkish migrants between age of 18 and 29 had only on-the-job training when they came to Turkey. So, and 34% of them had no professional education at all. So very unskilled people. We can understand why this was a problem for the German population, especially for the Germans that had also a very few years of education themselves, which made them directly compete with the migrants for relatively well-paid jobs. Let's move now to immigration of Jews from Romania. We all know that in the Second World War, many Jews emigrated from Romania. Jewish population was about 750,000. In 1930, after the Second World War, there were only about 300,000 Jews in Romania. There are only about 12,000 Jews now in Romania, so most of them either died or emigrated to Israel. They did not die in Auschwitz or in concentration camps, because Romania didn't actually send their Jewish population to Auschwitz. Antonescu, the Romanian fascist dictator, sent them in Transnistria, which is Eastern Moldova Republic, which is still ruled by today by the Russian army. So they died there, being deported by the Romanian fascists. In the communist period that started in 1947, only around 100,000 Romanian Jews left. The communist dictatorship also pressured the Jews, and between 58 and 66,000 of Jews left Romania each year. Between 69 and 74, the immigration rate dropped. Between 75 and the 90s, around 1,500 left yearly the country. So that's about it for Romanian immigration of Jews. But something else about Romania: 2 years ago, in 2019, Romania had the second largest immigration rate after Syria, which makes it very worrying for the Romanian state. The brain drain is huge. So it experienced the highest increase in immigration among the countries since 1990. In terms of share of immigrants, around 20% of Romanians are being outside of the country right now, which is huge. I also know that there are several waves of Romanians emigrating. First, at the beginning of the 90s, when most of the people went to Germany, and second, around the 2000s. when huge population, around 2.5 million, went to mainly Spain and Italy as agriculture workers. Then they chose to remain there. So there are similarities between the Romanian and Ukrainian cases. There is positive impact on income inequality reduction, and it caused changes in the family structure and values. The number of Romanian students abroad more than doubled in 16 years, from 12 to 30,000. Most of the Romanian students go now to UK, Italy, stay there to work and send back remittances, values, culture. Around 2008, a huge drop in poverty rate because of the remittances, from around 40% to around 25%. That's all about Romania. Next topic, the Italians in Germany. So more than 580,000 migrated to Germany for work, mainly from the south and the northeast regions of Italy. They are mostly located in southeast Germany or the west Germany, not so much in the north or east or northwest. Albania has one. That's all. Next, Albania. Albania has one of the highest migration rates in Europe. 1/3 of the population left the country, leaving just a 2.8 million resident population. The number of immigrants is a huge problem for Albanian pension system, as for the other pension systems of Romania, Ukraine, and other Eastern European countries. Albanians had a very hard time after the communist revolution and the breakdown of Yugoslavia. Hundreds of thousands of Albanians lost their savings after the communist regime. Because of the remittances, they reduced poverty from 25 to 12%. Most of the Albanians emigrated to Italy and Greece. In Greece, 400,000 by 1997. By 2003, there were 600,000 Albanians in Greece. I guess the host countries, Italy and Greece, were also worried, mostly like the German population. These Albanians were not so educated, they created integration, cultural clashes. And I guess the media framing also contributed to the negative stereotypes associated with Albanians with trafficking, drugs, prostitution, and violent behavior. The majority of Albanians from Greece returned to Albania by now. That's all about my my research about people moving around within Europe or from outside of Europe to Europe. I want to finish this video by stating that I'm an anti-nationalist. I believe nation states were a great idea in the 18th or 19th century, but so they had a unifying appeal back then, but by now 1-2 centuries later the concept of the national state is mostly obsolete. So it's not desirable anymore. It's causing more harm than help to populations, discriminating based on nationality, because that's what nation states mostly mean, encouraging their local populations to discriminate based on nationality or language skills. This creates a schizophrenia in the local populations, because the locals in their workplaces see that these foreigners are humans as well. They are encouraged by their governments to behave with them badly, as if they were not humans. This creates a lot of psychological distress or cognitive dissonance in the local population. EU, with all its imperfections and democratic deficit, is not the future, because it is another form of central government for me, which will lead to the same type of problems we have now with central states. That the nation states should disappear, Central governments should disappear for sure. We should have a federation of local communities, self-administered communities. I believe that any form of central government don't have much to offer anymore. This is a very controversial topic, but I think it's time to progress in our organization of our societies. Thank you very much for following me. Subscribe and like. See you in the next video.